Okay, so I'm going to do a little demonstration of my Arashiyama stones and what it takes to sharpen your basic knife like a Swiss Army knife. The steel is relatively soft, grinds fairly quickly, and can attain a very high degree of sharpness, although it doesn't hold it all that well. And just to show you this knife is dull, I'm going to take this 60 grit Nubatama stone and make sure it's good and dull. So now that the edge is all flattened out and rolled, we're just going to take and wet the stone down a little bit just to clean the surface here. Rub it with my finger, wet it down again. Just kind of pull some of the water off like that. We're going to go ahead and start here. Might not be working out so well quite yet. Bevel's pretty good. I got this little tiny area at the tip here I gotta work out. A little more. Go to some long sweeping strokes here, make sure everything's all even. Now that's not photoshopped or cut or edited, that's straight grinding across the 60 grit stone and resetting the bevel, the 1K Arashiyama stone. Give it a little back hone a few times like this. Might even see what the newsprint slicing ability is like. This is 1K, so it's probably still going to be a tad bit rougher. You can see it kind of wants to slice and tear a little bit. It's still a little bit of a burr. It's not perfect. Just kind of demonstrate where the edge is at with the stone. So that's it. Bevel's set. It's about as deburred as it's going to get, or that I need it to be. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to the 1K stone. As usual, my 1K is all dirty. I use it so much. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this rag down right here. Helps collect some of the water I'm going to be spraying. I'm going to use my Nagara stone. Just clean the surface. Kind of the reason I'm doing this is because I've had someone take my recommendation on these stones. I really like them. I thought they were very good, especially after my first run with some King and some King Ice Bear stones, which I really didn't like all that much. They didn't cut the steels that I typically sharpened, and they just didn't have the feel I wanted. So after a long time of searching, I finally found these and decided to go with them. So I'm not going to use any sort of mud on the surface of this stone. You can build a mud up on the surface with a Nagara stone, preferably a natural over a synthetic one. But you can also use Toma Nagara, which is the stone of a stone. You use a slice of the exact stone you're sharpening on to build a slurry with. And what that'll do is ensure that you're getting the best possible grit slurry to start before you start working the slurry and trying to get it to refine itself. Now this stone is going to work just as equally as quick at refining this bevel down, once again because this is a softer metal. So I'm just going to start out with edge curling strokes, like so. The reason I'm going with all edge trailing strokes is because the steel is so soft that it has a little bit more tendency to dig in, and the way the blade is positioned, you have to trick your own mind to hold it the right way, because when you're like this, the whole blade is up higher. When you're like this, the handle is below the stone, is where it's above the stone right here, and that messes with your angle control a little bit. So that's one of the other reasons I'm using all edge trailing strokes, plus the fact that the stone cuts very quickly. Now I can feel the edge pretty well coming along, and I'm going to start lightening up my pressure until I'm just barely touching the stone, just kind of kissing the surface. And I have to do that very well with this blade because the steel is soft and it's going to want to form a burr more readily. And remember, the burr that you create is all related to the amount of pressure you're putting on the stone when you're grinding on it. So at the very end, you want to make sure that you're putting the least amount of pressure on the stone to get the burr completely worked off. And if you're new to using stones and you're having a hard time gauging how much work you should be doing on a stone, I recommend 5 to 10 strokes per side. Say do 5 or 10 strokes like this, check what you did, check the overall bevel. Flip, go back the other way, repeat, check what you did, check the bevel. Keep doing that until you progress along to the point where the edge slopes have met an apex, and you're starting to create a sharp edge with a little bit of a burr at the end. Once you've done that, you can just work to get rid of that burr. You'll have a sharp knife. Now it's going to be a little more difficult to get the burr off this blade, once again because the metal is softer, so it's going to more easily deform. And I'm flushing the surface. You see me constantly flushing the surface because every time I wipe the blade I get little fibers in the air and little fibers of the cloth on the blade, and that touches back down on the surface of the stone, and that'll actually, you'll feel that between the edge of the blade and the stone when you're sharpening. So you want to keep the surface nice and clean. Okay, that right there is pretty good. Let's see what the good old newsprint tells us. There we go, finished on 6000 grit. Has a minimal burr on the edge. I don't know if you can really see that in the contrast. The paper has a little bit of fuzzy sticking up at its edge. And that's typically when you cut newsprint and you have that, or you have a little bit of newsprint on the edge. It's because you might have a little bit of a burr at the end of your blade. Now, a funny trick that actually tends to work is just by strafing the edge with your hand. I know some are probably saying, yeah, right. And I said the same thing the first time I heard about it. It's an old trick. It tends to work a little bit. There we go. See if we can get any minor improvements. As you can see, it's very sharp. The burr is minimal on the edge. Cleanly slices through some newsprint. And takes hair right off. I don't know how well that showed up, but you get the point. Hope that's been a little bit helpful to some in the working speed of the stone and kind of the method and technique that one might use to sharpen this type of blade.